I can actually see you guys.
Welcome to our Q&A session with Keira Newton. She is a world-class body coach helping women to lose weight in a sustainable way that really lasts a lifetime. And I'm so excited. We just did a podcast with Keira the other day, and after it was so powerful, I'm like, we need to do a follow-up session. There's so many questions that people have been having. And so we devoted this time for this session just to answer those questions. And we also have Prairie Rose here with us today as well, who's going to be asking some additional questions. So welcome, Keira. Thank you so much for joining us in our session today.
Yes, thank you. I'm super excited. We're going to smash through some of these myths.
Oh my gosh, I know. And you know what? I bet that just about every one of you who's watching live or on the replay has believed or at least heard of these myths, at least a few of these myths before. So I'm really excited to be able to just really dive deep into these things. So where do you want to start?
Do you want to, well, I'm looking at our little list here about people that had questions. And one of my favorites would be that you're going to go on a super strict diet and an exercise program for about 3 months. And then you think you're going to be able to go back to normal because it was somehow like a jump start. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to start there because I've done it and my clients have done it. And maybe if you're watching me today, you have done the same thing. But the reality of this is that when you go on a really strict, extreme diet, it will work. I'm not going to lie, it's going to work. Why? Because you've decreased your calories so dramatically that it has to work. And weight and fat loss is all about decreasing calories. That's it. That's all it is. It's nothing special. It's not green tea. It's not certain, pills or whatever. It's literally a decrease in calories. So when you go on an extreme diet, you're definitely going to get the results. However, this is the issue with all of us, is that when we come back off of it, even if we go back to a somewhat normal life, we can't sustain what we lost because we're not in that massive deficit anymore. So to think that we're going to start or jumpstart this really crazy diet and then somehow be able to sustain it for the rest of our lives is not true. And it's so upsetting to my clients and the people that I work with because they've gone back and forth so many times thinking that this time it's going to stay. So what we really need to do is find something that works for you. Nobody else, you. And there's just a million ways to do this, but it has to be in a way that you can easily do for the rest of your life. And if you literally think of this as like a lifetime, that's how you know you're on the right track. Like, yeah, this is manageable. I could probably do this forever. That's what we want to look for when we're looking for fat loss.
I love that concept, and I can just imagine, looking at the ideal. I mean, people do this with business too. It's like you don't want to set yourself up with this crazy plan that you'll be able to do for 2 weeks and then get burned out. Set yourself up for something that is you could do this for the rest of your life. You could do these things. If you just focus on these things for the rest of your life, you would be balanced, you would be energized, and it would feel good.
Yeah, exactly. So that, and we're so trained by the diet industry to look for extreme things. But we forget that this is on purpose. They want to do this for you so that you need them and that they make money, right? Like most diet people are not going to be like, yeah, let's find something that works forever for her because we'll make no money, right? But we forget that. We just think, oh, so-and-so lost 50 pounds because they're eating nothing but meat, right? And then but is that sustainable forever? Do you really want to eat just meat for the rest of your life? It's kind of something to consider, right? And then how are you going to come off these diets too?
What about people who are like, I really just want to eat donuts and pizza every day for the rest of my life? Like, how would you help them set up their diet and program so that they can really be fulfilled eating wise? Like, some people just hate vegetables and
Yeah.
they just can't get themselves to like vegetables.
Well, there's a few things in this. Number one is nobody can make you do what you don't want to do. And actually, the way that we're motivated is autonomy. And so if I don't like vegetables and you tell me I need to eat them and to trick myself and putting them in shakes and stuff, it's not, I will rebel at a certain point because I'm being told what to do. It isn't my choice. So if you want, I know this sounds weird, but if you're my client and you want to eat pizza and donuts, then you get to do that. Like, I actually don't, I just let you do that. Now, the hard part is if you want to lose fat and eat those things, you're not going to be very satisfied because you can't probably eat enough to be full. That's where we're going to get into trouble here. So, but it's always going to be baby steps. So it's not necessarily, okay, yeah, let's suddenly go vegan or eat, vegetables every day. But it is more of like, what tiny little step can we take so that we're feeling like this is a doable and manageable thing for us. Mm-hmm. So if they are in fact interested in eating more vegetables, they just don't like them, that's a different story.
I see. Okay.
You know what I mean? But if they're like, I only want to eat donuts and pizza for the rest of my life, I literally would say, then let's find a way for you to do that. I know I'm a different type of coach, but literally, like, this has to be within their own choice and their own power, because so many women that I work with feel very powerless around food. They feel out of control and crazy around food. So we need to bring the feeling of control back. And if it's literally, this is actually just a choice. Nobody's forcing me to not do this. I'm choosing to do this. Most of the time, you'll see a shift at a certain point and they'll choose different things that are maybe more healthy for them.
I love that. And I know what you do is more than just about food. There's a whole mental and emotional aspect to it as well, which I would imagine would help with that naturally wanting to eat in a more supportive way.
Yeah.
Do you see that with people?
Yeah. The mental aspect of what I do is 98.9%. And then once we've discovered and uncovered rather what is going on below the surface that is making you feel powerless and out of control, or making you feel like you're never going to be able to sustain fat loss or feel confident in your own body, often that's when that shift happens, then we can actually look at food. Then we can look at everything in our life. But if we're not looking at what's really going on underneath the surface, nothing is going to be easy for us in terms of health or fitness anyway, in any subject, even our marriage or our friendships. We have to look at those underlying things that are happening below the surface. And once we can understand who we are really, really well, then we can work with anything. Any challenge is doable. But it's not until we discover the things that we've been telling ourselves our whole life, like, I'm ugly and I've never been able to do this. How could I do this now? Those kinds of tapes that are running in our mind.
Yeah, exactly. That's, I've seen that so much in the work that I do as well, where, I don't do anything with, health and fitness directly. It's all just the mind stuff. And it's amazing how many times I'll hear from people that they suddenly eat differently. They just like don't crave certain things anymore. And it's like, it's just amazing how when you get to that level, how your behaviors change. And you don't have
Yes.
to force it. You don't have to really even try.
Yes. And that's what we're doing in our groups. And we've got some women on here now, and they could even speak to this, that, when that idea of trying goes away and they get to find the best way that works within them and their lifestyle, their lifestyle is maybe different than mine. And we can't assume that what I do is going to work for them. They must find it on their own, and they have to do that. And once they do, that autonomy comes in, and that's where they feel like they can make progress. And in those two things is where motivation comes from. So once they've done that, they actually find motivation to keep going on their own. Really, I mean, the support of our community is enormous, but they're finding ways to do this on their own. And that's most important to me. Like you said, they make better choices once they find it within themselves.
Yeah, I love it. Let's see. In Prairie Rose, you were the first one in here, so I'd like to call on you first. Do you have a question that you'd like to ask Keira? Or do you want to bring anything up for her?
We just had almost an hour-long conversation, about this of like, how do I find things that feel manageable, that don't feel like that put me in even a further state of overwhelm. And so we kind of really had a really good extended conversation about, not sitting on the sidelines, having the same behaviors, but also not swinging all the way to the other side and be like, oh, I'm gonna not eat this ever again, or I'm gonna work out 7 days a week for 2 hours a day. How, like, to find that balance. And I think right now my question for Keira maybe is more personal along that lines about just what has worked for you in the past of finding that balance without letting that script, that old script kind of take over, that we're not good enough or we're not capable. Just trying to find that balance between the mental, but also really having some tangible steps to move forward.
That's a really, really important question. I'm so happy that you asked that, because I was really very, very strict with myself. I was very mean to myself. I was under a lot of, I put myself into a lot of constraints, a lot of restriction. And oddly, the way that I found to balance that was to stop dieting. I had to stop dieting because the diets that I was choosing and the mentality that came with it were absolutely destroying me and making me binge eat more. And so when I finally figured out that I had to stop, and that was terrifying to me, because I thought, okay, well, if I stop, all of my control is going to go away and I'm going to gain a bunch of weight. And I'm a fitness person, and that means something to me, like my job or whatever, and also just me. So, but I did it anyway. And what I found from that was that when I loosened up all of those rules around what I was supposed to do and how I was supposed to look, and I relaxed and I allowed myself to eat the foods that I was absolutely terrified to eat, like bread, that I didn't actually gain any weight at all. But what I did gain was a sense of self. And I realized that what I thought was control was really literally out of control. My idea of control was controlling me. So the more that I tested those rules that I had made for myself and proved them wrong, the easier it became and the softer I got with myself, sort of what you're doing with yourself right now. And then I finally realized I don't have to worry anymore. There is no diet that could do this for me ever. No diet will make me feel this good, because what I have now is a sense of how to do this on my own without shakes or pills, or you know what I mean? Like, this is all coming from me. And then if I want to diet and lose weight, I know lots of ways to do that. But this time, if I go into that, I won't have the same mindset. You know, I won't have that same fierce mindset that I have to do it, you know, and that I'm so terrible for not being able to. Did that answer your question?
It did. Yeah. It's good to have that personal experience, you know, behind letting go of these extreme diets that I think so many of us, especially women, I think, you know, are subject to in this by society. So thank you.
Oh yeah, it's tearing us apart, really. You know, I understand that people want to lose weight. I understand that some people need to lose weight, you know, for health reasons, or some people just want to because it feels better. But it's not right to ask somebody to force themselves to be really hungry all the time, to not enjoy the food that they want to eat because they're not allowed to, you know, and it creates a mental battle. And every time you go on another extreme diet, it makes it worse. So I've just sort of promised myself that I would try my best to help people actually achieve what they wanted without mentally, you know, foregoing themselves, their lives, you know. Yeah.
I like to look at kids, because kids are like so in their natural state.
Yeah.
And obviously kids' bodies are a bit different. You know, they're going through different processes and stuff like that. But you know, kids behave in such a natural way. And I have a 9 and a 7-year-old, and I'm just, as you're talking about that, I'm reflecting on how, you know, how they treat food and their relationship with food. And because of my history, I'm like, try to be so careful about how I am with them and how I am around them, so that they're set up better than I was. So thank you for that. Hi, Laura. Do you have a question that you want to ask Keira today?
No, I wouldn't say a question, but I can really relate to everything that she's talking about. I've been working with Keira as a gym member for a few years, and then I've taken like a ton of her challenges and different, I'm like her biggest fan, I guess. And, but you know, the work I've done with her has been instrumental in me healing my relationship with food. Especially over these last 6 months, I got to that point that she often talks about of, I finally got fed up with being fed up with going back and forth, and I would be on track for a while and then I would fall off and I would gain and lose the same 20 pounds. And something sparked in me that was different. And I think allowing myself the freedom to make an individual approach for what works for me has liberated me from those binging fear cycles. And I've grown to trust myself. So I really don't have any cravings right now, which is so strange. I pretty much eat what I enjoy. I eat it within a calorie deficit. I've lost about 55 pounds in the last 7 months, I guess. And it's just a lifestyle. I work out 5 days a week. I do Keira's videos. I'm part of her group. It all keeps me very grounded and focused in what I'm wanting, even throughout this whole coronavirus, like shelter in place stuff. I'm like, I feel golden. I'm like good. So even when the gym closed, I was able to transition into working out at home, which I was kind of surprised by. And, I couldn't be happier. I want everybody to try what she's doing and to dig deep and learn those things about themselves and uncover why they had that attachment, and I think a lot of it is that fear and the trust, because I didn't trust myself. I've been overweight since I was a child. I've had the worst messages given to me growing up. Food was a reward. Food was a punishment. I was sent to bed without supper. The only thing we did as a family was go out to eat. I was forced to lose weight in elementary school, being weighed. I mean, I had a horrible toxic relationship with food and got up to almost 400 pounds at my heaviest. So it's really a beautiful experience to have found Keira and to work with her. And so, yeah, I guess I don't have a question. Just a testimonial.
Thank you.
I love that, Laura. Thank you so much for sharing that. What an amazing story. My gosh. Something that I love about what you're doing, Keira, is taking the pressure off.
Yeah.
Like this, I haven't been through your program yet, but I can just get a sense from what people are talking about. And, the way that you talk about it is there's not that pressure to like lose 50 pounds in 3 months or like lose 50 pounds in 3 weeks. It's like, it's a process. It's like anything else, any other kind of change or transformation you want to make in your life. It doesn't happen overnight. And if it does happen overnight, then you have that rubber band effect where you sometimes bounce back further than you started.
Exactly. We're playing, as our coach would say, the long game, right? Mm-hmm. So, and this is something that I remind them of, especially the new ones, the newcomers that come in to the group. They need to be reminded often that this is a long game, and this is not going to happen overnight. This is not the Biggest Loser, and that they're going to fail many times. And I want that for them, because through those failures, the fall, the stumble, the binge eating, they learn another piece about themselves, and they can use that now versus having a binge and being like, I hate myself. I freaking hate myself. That's what we do when we binge. But in this program, it's like, I want you to understand what you're doing when you binge. I want you to know where you were. I want you to know what happened. I want you to know who you were with, how you were feeling. And I also want you to forgive yourself for doing something that's just a thing. It's just a thing. It's not like a horrible act from, we just need to let that go and stand back up. And when they do that, they start to realize that they're creating their own life, right? They're starting to create a life that they want to live in. Like Laura said, she's her own creation. And she knows something about herself, which is what you're talking about, Sarah, which is that if she feels pressure, she will push back very quickly. And we've learned that about her. But she had to come to that. Like when she learned, oh, if Keira gives me a suggestion, I want to push back immediately. So that's information for her to know. That means I've got to create everything. There can be suggestions and I can take them or leave them, but it must be mine. And I can't say that enough, because the problem with what people are doing with diets and fat loss is they're not leaving it up to the person. They're just saying, here's this little thing, and I want you to fit a square box into a round hole. And if you don't do it, well, bummer you. You're not perfect like me. And those people, I know them. I know a lot of them. They have massive food disorders, eating problems, issues. They're starving themselves. They binge all the time, but they're not telling you that piece of it. So thank you. It is important that they, that they pay attention in that way to me, and that they take the pressure off and find a way that feels good, and that they are in the driver's seat and they're back in control again.
Now, that just brought up a huge question that I've been seeing a lot lately in the past year, consistently coming up. What about fasting?
This is big. So fasting is enormous right now. It's actually been in and out for the last 10 years, pretty consistent. When I went into fitness 15 years ago, it was even prominent then. It's just taken different shapes, like every diet. Okay, if you have an eating, I hate to call it disorder, but disordered thinking around food, let's call it, like myself, that is a very, very difficult thing to get through, because you are going to be starving yourself. Let's just make it clear. You're just skipping meals. That's all you're doing, is you're skipping a meal. What are you doing? You're putting yourself in a calorie deficit. Yes, people do that. So for somebody like me, it doesn't work, because if I'm not eating until 1 or 2 in the afternoon, I feel extremely deprived. I also feel very restricted, and I feel like I'm following rules, and they're not my rules. Mm-hmm. So when I do get a chance to eat, I will eat a lot, and it's almost like a binge, because I'm trying to calm that anxiety within me that it's brought up. And I've done intermittent fasting. I've done pretty much every diet. Intermittent fasting, before I got really physically ill, that was what I was doing. So for somebody like me, it doesn't work, especially if your adrenals are already taxed, you're exercising quite a bit, and your life is pretty stressful. Now, before everyone jumps in and wants to tell me, how I'm wrong, there are statistics. I'm not statistics, but there is research on both ends. And it says the same thing on both sides are saying the same thing, which is, yes, there is some benefit in certain ways of intermittent fasting. And yes, there is a problem in certain ways. So you have to find a balance for you. With that said, if it works for you and you love it, then you should do it. Mm-hmm. So I would never tell you no if you truly think that it's working for you, and not just think that it's going to make you lose weight. Because if that's what you want, there's lots of ways to do this. But if you feel better, intermittent fasting, that's okay. You can do that. But understand where you're going mentally with it. So a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, all the studies show how healthy it is, and haven't you seen all the benefits? But in the back of their mind, what they're really saying is, this is my freedom. This is my key to fat loss. I'll never have to worry about fat loss again. And that's the little secret that they have inside of them. If that's the way you want to go about it, there are so many other ways that are so much easier for some of us. But there are studies that show that it can be good for some people, not everybody. So I don't know if that answers, but there are a lot of different things that are going on around that.
That was so helpful. Yeah, absolutely. I used to do a lot of fasts, and it's funny how you feel benefits in the moment, but then when you go back, it's like, in my experience, all of the benefits seem to diminish the moment that I go back to eating, because of that just extreme deprivation and things like that. Let's see, Laura or Prairie Rose, or yes, do you have any other questions, or should we go to our pre-written questions? Okay. Keira, what do you have next for pre-written questions?
Let me pull them up. Oh, it's in my genes to be overweight.
Oh, yes.
It's in my genes to be overweight. So there is also a lot of studies that back this as well. You can genetically have that. That is the truth. However, most of the issues that people are having with obesity is a mimicked behavior from parents. So when you have two parents that are obese or overweight, the chances of the child being obese or overweight are 98%. That's very high. Now, if you have a child who is not raised by obese or overweight people, the chance drops down to 60%. So we can see there that it is quite a mimicked behavior, a learned behavior. Genetics do play a piece in this. However, you actually can change your genetics. That's crazy, I know, but you can. It's because of the plasticity of the brain. So when you are thinking things like, I'm genetically this way, I'll never be that way, I am, anything that's coming after I am, you have and are creating that life. And it's getting deeper and deeper. When you decide out of that and choose a different life, you actually can change the genetics, which is fascinating. It's not my specialty, but I've studied a lot about it. So now, if you look at the research, the people that do have the genetic component, it actually doesn't make a whole lot of difference in their weight gain. It is there, and they're more prone to it, yes, but it isn't as high as they think. I'd have to pull up the numbers because I don't have them in front of me, but it actually is lower than most people think, including metabolism. You know, when people say I have a slow metabolism, fast metabolism, studies are backing up this as well, that says when they take the most extreme high metabolism and the lowest metabolism and they bring them back to the middle, it comes within a 600 calorie difference. Now that might seem high, okay, but we're talking extremes. We're talking the most slow metabolism and the highest metabolism. And if they meet in the middle at 600, that's not a lot. I mean, that's breakfast, right?
So basically, if somebody says they have a slow metabolism, in order for that to make a huge impact on their weight, they would have to have like the slowest metabolism.
And even at that, it's not a lot. It's doable.
Right.
We're not talking 5,000 calories. That's a lot. We're not talking 1,000 calories. Mm-hmm. That's a lot. Mm-hmm. 600 is doable. Now, particularly if you're on the bigger side, 600 isn't that big of a deal, mm-hmm. right? So if you're on the slow metabolism side, and if you're on the high metabolism side, same. 600 isn't that big of a deal to eat more or to eat less, depending on the side you're on. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. That's like a hamburger.
Yeah. Well, a hamburger is actually a little more, depending on if you made it or not. Right. If you didn't make it, it's more like 1,000, 1,200. If you made it, yes, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of brings us into one of our next questions, which was about like people just naturally gain weight as they get older.
Yes.
And I hear people talk about like, it's like, oh, my metabolism is slowing down.
Yeah, my metabolism is slowing down. Menopause and losing muscle those are the three things that people use, but they often say the metabolism piece. Like that's one of the biggest things for people to say. And it's also really easy to hide behind that, right? Just to be like, well, there's a reason for this, right? Versus looking at what the reason actually is mentally. When you age, the biggest reason you are gaining weight is because you are moving less. Mm-hmm. That's really, truly the biggest reason. Now, exercise matters, but studies have shown that it's not the way that you think that it matters. When we are active as people, meaning we're moms, or we're going to the store, or we are standing up for our jobs all day or whatever. All of those things add up to a good amount of calories. And that amount of exercise and movement throughout the day is actually what is keeping your metabolism or your caloric burn higher. Interestingly, when we age, especially in menopause with women, we do have a slowing down because of the chemicals in the brain. We do tend to not have as much energy, particularly in that cycle, and we do sink into more sedentary lifestyle. And that does make you gain weight. Among other things, there are other things within menopause that would contribute to that. But the main thing with menopausal women is that they're a little tired. And so they have a tendency to not want to exercise as much or as hard, and just literally hang out a little bit more. It's that process of slowing down. That's what's happening with the age, more than the metabolism just dropping out. They're really literally moving less. Mm-hmm. And that is, at least 600 to 800 calories a day. That's affecting, and that would make somebody gain weight.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if that's their lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's one of those questions, again, that I hear come up all the time, is it just my age? Is this just like how I'm supposed to be because I'm whatever age I am? So makes so much sense.
And if we pull that into habits, then you can see that if you became a little bit tired and you became more sedentary than you used to be, then you create a habit around it. Mm-hmm. It's there. It's not going to go anywhere until you create a new habit and replace it with the new habit.
Now, can you share with us what kinds of habits you help your clients come to? I know that your approach is for them to create their own plan. So how do you help your clients and people going through your programs to come up with a lifestyle that's more active, that they can really enjoy and, do for the rest of their lives?
So we have been using Duhigg's chart from The Power of Habit. And his approach is that you have a cue, right? Mm-hmm. And you have a response. And then you have a reward. So you're in a loop. You're in a habit loop. But what we're looking at is the cues, how we're responding, what our reward is. And within that, people are discovering, oh, this is why I'm not exercising, because I have the cue of I'm too tired today. I worked out really hard yesterday. I deserve a break. Those are all habitual thoughts that they're understanding are literally sabotaging their results if we're using exercise, right? So what they're looking at is all of the cues, and they're putting in all of the thoughts. We've added the thoughts to our habit loop. So they've been putting in the thoughts that come with the cue, like, I'm not good enough. I should, I used to be this way, but I'm not anymore. Whatever's coming up within the different pieces of the loop is what they're looking at. Once they've looked at it and put it on paper, they now can remove it because it's like, oh, I didn't even know that this was how I was talking myself out of it. So that's one way that we do it. We also do, we close some of the gaps that we have. So like Laura is a great example because she's gone from no exercise to some exercise to sometimes exercise to 3 days of exercise to 5 days of exercise. And that's by her saying, I want to make a change and here's what it's going to look like. I work out 5 days a week. But if she's only working out 4 or 3, there's a gap in there. And so we're now looking at removing it so that she accomplishes the 5 days. And she does. Interestingly, going back to what I said before, she now has purpose behind it. She now has results, and it's self-driven. Those are all motivating factors. So she's motivated now versus waiting for it to come around someday. She's created the motivation. Now, I don't think she knew she was doing that in the beginning, but after all these weeks, we really started to see how that's solidified for her. And some of the other members of the community, they're creating this path for themselves by, one, closing the gaps, and two, really looking at the loops that they were in and how that was literally like just a self-sabotage, and getting it out of the way, or keeping it. If you want to keep it, you can, but now you know what's keeping you down, right?
Exactly. And when you're talking about the motivation, I was just talking with a client recently about this, and this is a really big piece that I would love to see people get. Is so I had a client who wanted to get motivated to do her work, and this applies to everything. It applies to exercise, to diet, wellness, everything. And so we started talking about, what that work is. And she just happened to mention, she's like, well, I kind of want to do this and I kind of don't want to do this. And I'm like, wait a second. The reason you're not motivated is because you don't want to do it.
Yeah. You have to want to do it.
Exactly. And she, for some reason, felt like she was supposed to do it. So she was trying to force herself into it, and she couldn't. She spent like 3 months trying to do this thing.
Yeah.
And she couldn't motivate herself. So then we started talking about what she wants to do. And you could literally hear her voice change. And it was like she got excited. She got all these ideas. And now she's like off to the races with it. And it's like, just do what you want to do. And there are so many different paths. There's not just one path to fitness. There's a million. Yeah. Maybe there's a billion.
Yeah.
There's many.
Oh yeah. And I think Laura and I are smiling because we just had this meeting where somebody was in the hot seat on Sunday, and she was saying, she was talking about the results that she wanted to get and how did she do it. And I said, well, how many days are you working out or whatever, lifting weight? 3. Okay. Is it working? Yes. Okay. But I feel like I should do 5. Why? I don't know. I just feel like I should. So we put her in the hot seat. And the thing is that she's never been satisfied and never will be satisfied with her results because she always thinks she has to work harder. And that's a story that a lot of people have in there, that somebody somewhere told them, this isn't enough. You have to do more. And so even if you're getting results, you're going to put that thing on top of you saying, but you need to do more. Instead of turning around and saying, why? Like, it doesn't make any sense. The data is here. It's working. 3 days. Great. Enjoy your life. So for her, it was like a big wake-up call, and a light bulb went off going, oh, who put that in me? And why have I been trying to please that person for this long? Right? Rather than liberate myself. If I want to do more, great, that's fine. But it's those I'm supposed to, or I should, or whatever's that come up, like your client. And in my world, it's everywhere because they think they should look a certain way. But really, you know what they want? They want to feel confident. That's what they want. It's not that they want to be skinny. They want to feel good. That's what they really, really want. And I bet that's what she wants too.
Exactly. Yeah. There's so much programming everywhere you go. Yeah. Billboards, magazines, books, movies. We don't have TV. And so it's really interesting when we go to a family or friend's house who has TV and we see these shows, and it's like, what? All the characters on these shows are like super made up, super skinny, and they just like, it doesn't look natural, but they put them in these natural settings. And it's like, no wonder I watched these shows when I was a kid, but you don't notice it because you're just so used to it. And it's just, if you're watching 2, 4, 6 hours of TV a day, and you're just like staring at these picture perfect people all day, it's no wonder that we have this program even just from that. So let's see, Keira, we have time for one more question. And Laura, do you have anything else that you want to ask us while we're here?
I'm good. I'm just enjoying listening, and the repetition. I always tell Keira, repeat everything 1,000 times because that's what we need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, even studies on advertisement. That's why we see the same advertisement over and over, because it just like drills into your brain. And so she's always like, I just feel like I'm repeating. And I'm like, no, that's the point. You're repeating.
That's your job, to repeat yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I listen to everything she does because it just keeps reminding me, and it keeps me on that, like, the hamster wheel of change, So no, it's great. So whatever question you want is fine with me.
Well, actually, the cool part about the repetition that she's talking about, we just had a meeting last week about repetition and how important it is to repeat, 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 repeat. But she's repeated it so many times that I know that if I'm not able to answer somebody's question because I'm working or doing stuff like this, she'll answer it. Like, she'll just go on and give the answer because she knows it and it's in there, and that's what's so important. That's why she's got the results that she's got. It's really in there. But neither one of us would have guessed this 3 years ago, right? That she would be, the prodigy. So let's see, what jumps out to you, Sarah? We've got, I don't have time, I don't have willpower, I can't be trusted around food.
Ooh, let's do the trust one.
Yeah. The trust one is really huge because this goes back to binge eating, right? And if you are a binge or emotional eater, everyone has emotional eating sometimes. That's just a normal thing. But if you feel like you can't be trusted around food, that's more of like a binge eating feeling because you're scared that you can't stop. And you probably have been in situations where you didn't stop. So what's really interesting about binge eating is that it doesn't happen unless you've dieted. And if you look at people like myself or Laura or people that I've worked, most everyone that I've worked with, they've either gone on a diet early in their life or been forced to go on a diet. Now, what that tells the child, 12-year-old, okay, we're talking young kids, what that tells them is that there's good and bad foods, that they are to behave in certain ways around those foods, that there's good and bad behavior around food, and that certain foods make you fat. And God forbid you get fat, because that's, again, another horrible thing, like you were just saying, right? Because there's a phobia. So there's all these things going on around it. The reason you can't trust yourself around food is because of that. That is why. Because you've been taught you should not be. And then because you've been restricted or been forced to be restricted, even worse. When you do get around food, you will have a binge, most likely, because during that time, you're going to tell yourself that tomorrow you're going to be in control and go on a diet. That tomorrow you'll throw away the foods, and you probably will throw the food away. I've thrown food away hundreds of times, and I've picked them out of the trash 100 times too. Because that's the obsession that comes with binge eating, is that you cannot stop. But the reason that's happening is because you're not allowing yourself food. You don't trust yourself around food anymore. And that restriction is so heavy upon you that you think you will never get the food it is that you're having again. And so you will go crazy because you're not going to allow yourself to do it tomorrow. So oddly, all of the control that you have in your life around food is what's making you out of control and crazy around food. That actually is the reason. And so when we slowly start to learn how to trust ourselves and not be so afraid of food, that obsession goes away, the binging goes away, and the confidence comes back. That's the crazy part about it. It's ironic, and it seems really odd that the way to handle and deal with not being crazy and out of control around food is to stop dieting and stop fearing food.
Mm-hmm. I love it. You know, I just feel like it feels like such a weight lifted, you know, and again, it's like that pressure, like there's a pressure of the time, there's a pressure of the specific diet restrictions, and there's the pressure of the, like, what's going to happen, what's the consequence. And, you know, this pressure just comes from all over. And, you know, so it's just so powerful to have permission to alleviate that pressure and to be free of it, and to, you know, we're adults here. We can make good decisions.
Yeah.
And
We
food
really
is no
can.
different than anything else, when we treat it like everything else.
Yeah. The hardest part about taking off the pressure is learning to trust yourself. That's the hardest part about this process that we're going through together, my clients and I, which is knowing that just because you stumbled and you had a binge doesn't mean it's going to stay around for the rest of your life. Like, it's why it's important to have a coach like you or me to remind them that mistakes are important right now. You have to make these mistakes. The only thing that we need to do with the mistake is learn what happened when it happened. And that's all. There's no punishment, there's no stress, there's no expectation. And that's, you know, once we lower this pressure, like you're saying, people get to choose their own life now, you know, like they get to do what they want, and then they get excited because it's what they want, not their dad, not their mom, whatever, you know, societal, you know, beautiful thing that you're supposed to be. Who came up with it anyway? So, you know, taking that away and creating your own beauty standard, yours. Nobody else needs to tell you whose it is. It's ridiculous.
I was just talking with a friend last night, and I do have to get going to another meeting in just a moment, but
Yes.
I was talking with a friend last night about things like this, and she's like, you know, somewhere along the way we got stuck on the rose, that roses are the flower, but daisies are beautiful, and tulips are beautiful. Like, how did we get stuck on the rose? And I feel like, you know, how did we get stuck on this, like, cookie cutter figure that we have these insane expectations to match? It's crazy.
Yeah. You know, before we get off, my daughter just said to me yesterday, isn't it weird how bodies go in fads? How sometimes it's good to be really skinny, sometimes it's good to be curvy, sometimes it's good to be androgynous. Why is that happening, Mom? And I was like, because people make money off it. You know, like that's, you know, now it's a big butt and, you know, what, like you're curvy, and, you know, my genetics fall into that, but it'll go back into being hyper thin, and then I won't be in style. Like, it's insane.
I won't be
literally
in style. Oh my God.
Like, your body is in style. Think about this.
Wow.
It is freaking ridiculous.
Hey, you know what? If I just wait long enough, someday my body will be in style.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I guarantee
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Keira. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, everybody, for being here, watching the replay. We love and appreciate you. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to Keira directly or drop any questions you have in the comments.
Absolutely. Always here for you. And if I don't answer, Laura's going to answer for you.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much. It was great to see you guys. And I'll see you in a minute. Okay. Bye.